Hi there, my name is Michelle. I'm with the Columbus Literacy Council and welcome to Storytime. I'm going to read you a book today called Extra Yarn. And this book was written by Mac Barnett and illustrated by John Klassen. Extra Yarn. On a cold afternoon in a cold little town where everywhere you looked was either the white of snow or the black of soot from chimneys, Annabelle found a box filled with yarn of every color. See, there's Annabelle. So she went home and she knit herself a sweater. And when Annabelle was done, she had some extra yarn. So she knit a sweater for Mars too. Mars, her dog. But there was still extra yarn. And when Annabelle and Mars went for a walk, Nate pointed and laughed and said, "You two look ridiculous." "You're just jealous," said Annabelle. "No, I'm not," said Nate. But it turned out he was. Even after she'd made a sweater for Nate, and a sweater for his dog, and for herself, and for Mars, she still had extra yarn. At school, Annabelle's classmates could not stop talking about her sweater. "Quiet," shouted Mr. Norman. "Quiet, everyone. Annabelle, that sweater of yours is a terrible distraction. I cannot teach with everyone turning around to look at you." "Then I'll knit for everyone," Annabelle said, "so they won't have to turn around." "Impossible," said Mr. Norman. "You can't." But it turned out she could, and she did, even for Mr. Norman. She knit a sweater for everyone in her class. And when she was done, guess what? Annabelle still had extra yarn. So she knit sweaters for her mom and dad, and for Mr. Pendleton and Mrs. Pendleton, and for Dr. Palmer, and for little Louis. She made sweaters for everyone, except Mr. Crabtree, who never wore sweaters or even long pants, and who would stand in his shorts with the snow up to his knees. "No sweater for me, thanks," said Mr. Crabtree. So guess what she made him? She made Mr. Crabtree a hat. And even then, Annabelle had extra yarn. She made sweaters for all the dogs and all the cats, and for the other animals too. Soon people thought Annabelle would run out of yarn. But it turned out she didn't. So Annabelle made sweaters for things that didn't even wear sweaters. Look at all the things, the mailbox and the house and the birdhouse. Things began to change in that little town. Now it's colorful. News spread of this remarkable girl who never ran out of yarn, and people came to visit from around the world to see all the sweaters and to shake Annabelle's hand. One day, an archduke who was very fond of clothes sailed across the sea and demanded to see Annabelle. Uh-oh. "Little girl," said the archduke, "I would like to buy that miraculous box of yarn, and I'm willing to offer you $1 million. "No, thank you," said Annabelle, who was knitting a sweater for a pickup truck. The Archduke's mustache twitched. $2 million, he said. Annabelle shook her head. "No, thanks." $10 million, shouted the Archduke. "Take it or leave it." "Leave it," said Annabelle. "I won't sell the yarn." And she didn't. So that night, the Archduke hired 3 robbers to break into Annabelle's house, and they stole the box. They took it to the Archduke, who set off across the snow and sailed over the sea. No. He went back to his castle. The Archduke put on his favorite song and sat in his best chair. Then he took out the box and he lifted the lid and he looked inside. What do you think he's going to find? His mustache quivered, it shivered, it trembled. The box was empty. The Archduke hurled the box out the window and shouted, "Little girl, I curse you with my family's curse. You will never be happy again." Look at the yarn. The box is falling through the water. And look, it's back with Annabelle and her doggy Mars. It turned out she was. But she's all back together with their yarn. That's the end of the story. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time on Story Time.